Welcome back to Looking for Work. Another Tuesday edition. We do this every Tuesday at 12 o'clock noon. Answer questions live. If you have a question about the job search process or about how to get started transitioning into a career in tech, this is it. You're in the right spot. If you know anybody that you think would be a great potential candidate for our apprenticeship program, or if you know someone that benefit from these conversations, please share with them the fact that we're doing this. We're again just trying to support as many folks as we can that are looking to make that transition into a tech role. So if you're currently searching for a job, love to hear from you. Love to hear some questions about what are the difficult parts of the journey. See if we can smooth some of that stuff out for you. I know lots of people have been sending me messages asking, when will they know about the apprenticeship? We are actively seeking more employers. And so because we're now doing rolling cohorts, we really just, a lot of folks are on the wait list and need more folks to see that this is a great opportunity for them to engage with earlier career talent and make an investment in their developer bench of talent. And that's sort of what will dictate the cadence of how quickly we can bring more apprentices into our program, through our program, and into permanent roles. Unlike a lot of other programs that might be out there where they train people, then they kind of leave it up to the graduates to find a job, we kind of have to have jobs lined up to eliminate the need for this, looking for work, right? So full circle. So I'm happy to hang out here for a bit, answer folks' questions. Best way to shoot a question to me is just drop it in the comments, and those will come directly to me, and then I'll be able to answer them live in real time. In the event that you catch this on YouTube or LinkedIn later, feel free to either DM me, drop me an email, mike@cccareers.org, and I'd be happy to answer your questions on the next broadcast. So that said, what are your questions? What is the biggest blocker between you and that opportunity that you're seeking? If it's data engineering, software engineering, I'm usually pretty good at getting people unstuck. And I haven't done a reset in a while, and so this might be a good time for me to drop a reset on some of the broad techniques and tactics that I usually recommend for folks. And we'll start with the biggest one, and that is I don't think enough people treat the job search process like a job. And what I mean by that is really evaluate. If you had a boss, who I guess could be you, but if you're holding yourself accountable, would they look at the activities and actions that you're taking every day and say you're doing a good job in your job search? And if not, really try and dial in and hold yourself accountable. I'd say the first thing that your boss or anybody else is going to ask is going to be, what are the metrics? What are your KPIs, right? How do you know if you're doing the intermediate steps that are necessary before you get that job offer? And so the first thing I usually suggest to folks when I'm sort of coaching people, providing one-on-one advice is, let me take a look at your spreadsheet where you're tracking your jobs and see how many reach outs are you doing? How many follow-ups are you doing? How many phone interviews are you landing? How many in-person interviews are you landing? What do those numbers look like? And when people kind of give me the vague responses like I've had a few, or I apply to X number of jobs per week, then I can tell they're not usually following a disciplined process and being diligent. And that's why it's taking them. That's one of the biggest contributing reasons why it's taking them longer to find a job. So tip number one, treat the job process like a job. And that means, what are your KPIs? It's a numbers game. The more folks that you contact, follow up with, have a phone screening with, more likelihood you're going to get an interview on site, and more likely you'll get a job opportunity. If you don't get any interviews, you're not likely to get a job, right? And so when folks are asking, how do I get more interviews? Okay, well, let's start with the first part of the process. Are you tracking things? If you're tracking things, awesome. You got square one, step one, you're good to go. And when I say tracking them, it doesn't have to be a super sophisticated, CRM, the database system. You could just use an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Doc, right? Free. You put in the name of the company, name of the person, because you should be personalizing your reach outs, name of the person you're reaching out to, when you reached out to them, and when you're going to follow up with them, and then any notes in the last column. That way, at any given time, you can sort the sheet and see which ones you should be following up with on any given day. So that way, you've got sort of a mechanism to every day know who you should be following up with. And if you've got folks in there you haven't followed up with them, it's been several days, then follow up with them, set the date out to the next time you need to follow up with them. Super easy way for you to keep track of who you should be reaching out to and who you should be following up with on a regular basis. I'd say biggest, no-brainer for me, but kind of hard for folks, is consistently following up. So that would be the second thing. Once you're tracking it, actually follow up with folks, because you will differentiate yourself and distinguish yourself from hundreds of other candidates if you just send that one follow-up email. Right? So you've done an initial reach out, send one follow-up email, you are at the front of the pack in terms of the likelihood of someone now being able to differentiate you from everybody else. Everybody else sent the one, submitted the application, and peaced out. They're looking at some other opportunity, the shotgun approach. And if that's you, just remember, the shotgun approach, you only have to step your game up just a little bit to be ahead of 90% of the pack. And that's goal number one, is make sure that people are, if they're going to pay attention to anybody that's applying, they're paying attention to you, right? So you've done a good job of setting yourself up for success. If you don't have a spreadsheet and whatever you're doing right now is not being tracked, stop, set up a spreadsheet, track who you're reaching out to. Then make sure you're setting holdovers for when you should be following up. The next issue that I usually see when I look at someone's spreadsheet, now I actually have something kind of like a doctor I could diagnose. I can look at that. It's kind of like your lab reports. I can look at your lab reports and I can say, I can see some general symptoms of, a problem with your reach outs. You're not contacting enough organizations. I only see 3 companies on here. And then they might say something like, well, I don't put everybody I reach out to. Well, what's the point if you're not going to put everybody on there? Right? So you gotta work on that part of doing a better job tracking. Or it could be, I just get a monster list and I'm like, how are you applying to this many jobs? And I go on Indeed and I click the button and then I put it on my sheet. That's not going to work, right? So you got to make sure that you're making best effort for each job that you're reaching out to. You should be spending a little bit of time researching the organization, finding a unique person that you can make a connection to and have an internal champion inside of the organization. So those little pieces, those foundations, you got to make sure you've got those in place before you power through submitting a bunch of applications. I generally say if you're applying for a technical role, 10 applications a week. If you stay on 10 applications a week, you're going to be fine. You'll get a job fairly quickly, especially in today's market. Today's market, folks are struggling to find talent. So if you're doing 10 reach outs a week, 10 quality, you're reaching out to an individual person. You're sending that cover letter addressed to a person, and you're taking the time to provide some details as to why you're the best candidate for this specific role, then the process will go much, much faster. It's one of those scenarios where if you don't do these things, man, your process is going to take way longer and be super painful. So you got 10 that you're doing a week, you get them on the sheet. When I look at a sheet and I see, okay, good pace, but I don't see follow-ups. And the diagnosis is, okay, you need to work on your follow-up mechanics. Make sure you're following up on a reasonable period of time. What's a reasonable period of time? Depends. But I'd say, 2 to 3 business days, next week. If you're not following up that frequently, then it's probably not a high priority to either you or them. Now, keep in mind, sometimes folks are on vacation, so they might be out for a week, right? So it might take them a little while. So you don't want to pepper them with messages. You send them every other day in a message. That's too much. So you want to be reasonable, right? If it's been a few business days and the person hasn't responded, then maybe you kick it out 1 week. And then once you don't get a response in 1 week, kick it out for another week. Then the following week, again, same kind of mechanic. If they tell you not interested, not looking right now, kick it out for 6 weeks. month and a half. And a month and a half, circle back with that employer. If they haven't found another candidate, they might be open to having a conversation now, right? And those follow-ups, those are going to be quick, so you can knock out a bunch of follow-ups. And by doing that, by being the person that's going to reach out once, you say, hey, I'm not interested right now. I think we're good, or we've stopped hiring for that particular position. But you're the one that's in the back of their mind because you keep coming back and saying, hey, over the last month and a half, I worked on this project. I think I'm getting pretty good at understanding X, Y, or Z. And at that point, some point it might just kind of resonate. Oh, well, you know what? There's not a fit on my team, but there might be a fit on this other team. Well, let me make an introduction. And suddenly people are kind of like, they're working on your behalf because they see you putting the effort forward, right? So that's another big tip. It may not be the individual that you reach out that this decision maker, but they could be an influencer. And so you want that positive experience with them so that they are then going to go and be a champion for you, maybe elsewhere in the organization. So I think if you're executing on those, then you should be getting phone screenings. So it should be obvious to me when I look at someone's job board, okay, they're getting some phone screenings. Awesome. What's happening during the phone screenings, right? Then you can focus on the mechanics there. What's happening on the on-site interviews? And in many cases, it doesn't take that many phone screenings to get an interview offer, and it doesn't take that many interviews to get an opportunity unless you're doing something really wrong during either the phone screening or the interviews. Because by the time they've committed to calling you and finding out more information, they're kind of interested. Like they really want you to be a fit. And by the time they're dedicating resources to bring you on site, they really, really want you to be the right fit. They don't want to waste the resources internally of having people talking to you and engineers and HR leaders if they think it's a long shot of them, being able to find a fit with you. So you shouldn't need a high volume of those. So when I see many of those, it's usually a sign something good is not happening there. Then you can just tweak it. You can just work on that. But at least you have a sense of like, these are the parts of your process that you should be tweaking, versus when I ask people how the job search is going and they say, I've been looking for a really long time. And then I ask them for like, give me some numbers, and they're all over the place. Oh, I applied for lots and lots of jobs. Well, how many jobs have you applied for? I don't know, hundreds. Okay. Are you tracking it? Right. What's the actual like funnel, if you want to look at it that way? Look at it like a sales funnel. You got a lot of people at the top of the funnel that you're reaching out to, and it gets more narrow and narrow and narrow until you get closer to an opportunity. And so if you don't know where you're having problems in the funnel and you can't articulate it, it's really hard for you to solve those challenges that you have in your job search process. Treat it like it's a job. It's a process of the job, doing these mechanics. So I went on for a little bit there, but I'm hoping this is helpful for folks. I'm not seeing any questions. So now I'm wondering, is StreamYard working? Is LinkedIn working? Is anybody out there? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? It's a little unusual to not have any questions by this point. So let me look and see. I don't see anything there. That could be the problem. Oh, no, we're live 13 minutes ago. All right. Maybe people just aren't feeling froggy today, huh? Fingers are tired from typing. All right. I'll do the heavy lifting. No, I am excited, though, that I feel like from all indications, a lot of people that I'm talking to are having success. They're finding those first opportunities, and they're getting placed in places. Ubaldo, good to see you. Hi. Happy to see that there's somebody out there. And the weird part about StreamYard, so I'm using StreamYard, which is a platform that you can use when you're doing these live streams. It doesn't give me a very good indicator of how many people are actually watching. The little watching counter is totally off. So there could be like 1 million people watching this right now. Probably not. But there could be a lot, and right now it just shows 0. But I know people are there because Ubaldo just posted a question. So it's hard. The life of a LinkedIn broadcaster. Waldo says, how do you handle a skill in a job description that you don't have right now? Okay. So the first thing you want to do is determine is this a required skill, right? Is this like a nice to have, or is this like a must have for the job? And then you should internally ask yourself, is this something that you believe you can acquire? And then you can decide, do you need to start working on acquiring that now? Or can you wait until you're on the job and this is something that you can pick up while you're on the job? So here's my 2 cents on that, because that I think is the really interesting thing for early career developers. A lot of early career developers will sort of like thrash around when they see job postings, and they'll see a job posting for like PHP, and then the next week they'll see a job posting and it'll be for like I don't know, Ruby on Rails. And so they'll be like, which language should I learn? Should I try and learn a little bit of PHP for this particular job opportunity? And my general answer for that is no. Do not jump around different technologies because you see a requirement somewhere on one of the job postings and you really like that company or that job, and you think if you just learn enough of that thing, then you'll be a stronger candidate. Generally speaking, for early career candidates, when smart hiring managers are hiring for the job, they don't really care if you've got specific Ruby experience or PHP experience or Java or C#. They want to know you've got a solid foundation in a language, right? And how proficient you are in that language will help them to understand how quickly, to answer that question, you should be able to pick up these other skills. And so if you were to say, look, I don't know any Ruby, if Ruby was the requirement, but I do know, and then you list the skills that you currently have, and I feel like I could be pretty strong in Ruby in 6 months. That would be a great way to articulate to that employer that you're interested and that this is something that you would personally take on, but it's also not practical for you to try and in a couple weeks learn a little bit of Ruby so you can apply for this job, and in a few weeks learn a little bit of C# so you can apply for that job. You just end up not knowing a lot of anything versus just staying in your lane, developing your skill in the areas that you currently have, and then as it makes sense, you acquire either new languages, new frameworks, new skill sets. So hopefully, Waldo, hopefully that helps. So first, evaluate whether or not it's a deal breaker for the job. If it's not a deal breaker in a job description, don't worry about it. There's going to be lots of things that they're going to have on there as a wish list. If it's a real hard requirement, they're like we really need someone to have this particular skill, then it's about communicating, okay, when and how can you get there? And it may not be practical for you to get there before you interview or before you get an offer from the organization. Don't jump around and thrash trying to, like, this week you're trying to be a square peg and next week you're trying to be a round peg. That's not going to work. And I've seen it happen for a lot of folks. They're like, if I just do one project in this language, then it's like, nope. Now, if you get an interview, if they're lining up an interview, sure, then it might be a good idea for you to, dabble a little bit in it, make sure that you feel comfortable with just a general sense about the language. You try and build a small project in it, but it's only if, in my recommendation, again, this is just my personal recommendation, that's only if it has distinguished itself from other jobs in that you've already had a phone interview and they say, hey, we'd love to have you come in and meet some of our engineers. Awesome. But I wouldn't do that just to see if you can get a phone interview. It's too speculative. Probably not a good use of your time. And that's the thing I think a lot of folks that are struggling to get a job don't realize is, like, your time is still super valuable. And you should be investing your time in things that are going to get you closer to a job opportunity than investing in things that could be a distraction or could be very low yield. They still might get you closer to a job, but not nearly as much as doing these other activities during your workday, right? Again, you're treating it like a job. So during your job, you'd want to do things that are going to be, they're going to impress your boss. They're going to get you closer to, surprising and delighting your customers, right? It's interesting because you're like a one-person thing, but you want to be able to, show some good ROI on the time that you're investing. So some projects, good ROI. But I would try and make the projects solidify your existing knowledge and existing skills and only spend about 10 to 20% of your time on learning new things. Then you're going to spend a sliver of your time, maybe another 20 to 25% of your time researching, going out and applying to new jobs. Another batch, about 20-25% of your time following up, right? So if you basically break down your week, you should be learning a little bit of new, you should be practicing existing things, you should be doing your reach ups, and then you should be doing your follow-ups. If you do that and you have a good blend of those big chunks of activities, you'll be in much better shape and try to spend 70% of your time learning this new framework because you believe that that's going to get you a leg up on a particular job. So hopefully that's constructive and it helps. What else? What other questions? I think that'll be helpful for a lot of folks because I've seen that happen a lot. A lot. Any other questions? I feel like today I'm going to have to like bookmark this for folks and be like, this is the session I did the recap, because it's been a while since I kind of went through like the process overall that you should be using. And then, yeah, there's a ton of videos on YouTube. So if anybody stumbles across this and you're looking for more content about the job search process, feel free. Have at it. Any other questions? I'd love to see if I can help a couple more people. If not, I'm going to lunch. It's Mickey D's today. I feel like I should get a McDonald's sponsorship. I just like hold up my strawberry banana shake. Come on, McDonald's. Give me more of these little bad boys. Anybody else have any other questions? I have some super exciting news that's coming soon about our apprenticeship program. So I can't talk about it yet, but it's coming soon. It's going to be exciting. So anybody that's catching this on LinkedIn, stay frosty because it's big. Huge. All right. If we don't have any other questions on like the next, let's say 60 seconds, minute, I think a minute's fair. We'll end for this week, but I will be back. We do this every Tuesday. So, set your clock. Invite other people that are early career folks and are looking for some advice. They're trying to kind of tune up the process. I love those scenarios when people have like, look, this is what I think I'm struggling with. We can get in there and we can just dive into, okay, well, let's try and make these a couple of adjustments. See if we can shorten the time that's going to take you. And man, for people that's all they need is they need a little bit of direction and they're off to the races. They can usually turn it around and get a job offer pretty quickly, right? It's about working hard, but also working smart. All right, I don't see anybody else, but yeah, we'll do it again next week. Tuesdays, 12 p.m. That's 12 noon Pacific. Tuesdays, 12. Later.